Hello everyone, Sam here, and welcome to Jungle July. This is a reading event that I'm starting this month, focused entirely on jungle stories. If you look at my complexion now, I look a little sweaty because it's summertime in Florida, and walking outside for 5 minutes will leave you sweating lots of sweat. So I'm also wearing my hat that one would take if one was in the jungle. And so this complexion is actually fitting for this video. I'm also, if I seem a little breathless, it's because I've had to do this video 3 different times. This is my 3rd time because of memory issues with my computer. It should be resolved now, but if I seem a little haggard, it's because this is the 3rd time I've done it. But to get to the actual event, I wanted to do another reading event, and around the time that I did Mummy May, I got an idea for a jungle-themed reading event. Because when I was a kid, I used to be really into jungle stories and reading about different adventures in jungles. And when I got older, I kind of dropped them for a while. But over the last 2-3 years, I've actually really been getting back into them. And especially recently, I've been getting into the Tarzan stories because I started reading Edgar Rice Burroughs' output. So 2 months ago, I was kind of going, well, you know what? I don't see a lot of people talking about jungle stories that much. And that's actually quite strange because there was a period in time where jungle stories were about as big as Westerns were. Because you had the Tarzan stories in the 1910s through to the 1940s. As written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. There were even a handful published after he passed away. But you also had the Tarzan films. You had plenty of Tarzan knockoffs that were on films, too. You had jungle comics. And it was just this really ubiquitous genre in the first half of the 20th century. But starting, I would say, around the late 60s to early 70s, they kind of dissipated. And the genre just really hasn't been as prominent as it had been, much like Westerns. But even Westerns have their own dedicated fan base these days, and you still see a fair number of Westerns pop up. But jungle stories just don't seem to have made much of a resurgence, and I kind of wanted to counteract that in my own way. So back in May, I said I should do a Jungle June or a Jungle July. It ended up being Jungle July because June I was busy with Michael K. Vaughan's June on the Range reading event, though this month isn't much better because I'm also doing his Rocket Summer reading event. But I'll fit this in. And hopefully this reading event will inspire some of you to check out some jungle stories of your own. I'm actually going to have some prompts for anybody who wants to join in. I don't fully expect many people to because I only have a handful of followers, and like I said, this is not necessarily a genre a lot of people pay attention to. But I'm going to provide some prompts in case any of you watching want to join in. So this event is going to have 4 prompts, and 3 of them are based on periods of time, and 1 of them isn't. The first prompt is any jungle story that was written before Tarzan. That basically means anything before Tarzan of the Apes was published in 1912. Not There were a fair number of them. Tarzan really has kind of overshadowed a lot of them, but there actually were a fair number of pre-Tarzan jungle stories. The second one is any Edgar Rice Burroughs jungle stories. That includes Tarzan, because Tarzan is the most prominent jungle character he wrote. But he wasn't the only jungle character Burroughs wrote, and there actually were a fair number of other jungle stories Edgar Rice Burroughs produced. So that gives you a little bit of freedom if you're not as into Tarzan. The third prompt is Tarzan knockoffs, because Tarzan inspired a lot of knockoffs. If you're nice, you would say they were heavily inspired by Tarzan, but if you're more blunt like me, they were knockoffs. So any character that is a Tarzan knockoff, you can read those characters for this third prompt. And the fourth prompt is the Great White Hunter character. This is any sort of story or character that deals with a great white hunter traveling through Africa. And, well, not just Africa, it can be other places like India or South America, any place with a jungle. And this one isn't as constrained by time because there were a lot of post-Tarzan great white hunters, but there are also a lot of pre-Tarzan great white hunters. We actually examined one shortly a few months earlier with King Solomon's Mines, Alan Quatermain. So those are the four prompts, and I figured they'll give folks a lot of freedom if they want to participate in this, and it'll give people a good taste of the different kind of jungle stories that were put out. So I'm doing 2 stories for each prompt because I really like to push myself, and I want to work through a lot of my stories that have been building up for some time. As you can see behind me, I got a fair amount of books, so we're going to work through them this remaining July. So for prompt 1, which is pre-Tarzan stories, I'm going to do the most obvious choice because it's the most obvious duo of stories that were pre-Tarzan jungle stories. And that is The Jungle Books by Rudyard Kipling, which includes The Jungle Book and the second Jungle Book. And these are the most famous pre-Tarzan jungle stories. And it's arguably the most influential one, because obviously Rudyard Kipling was a hugely influential writer. And even though the jungle in these stories is generally the jungles of India, it is very much jungle stories for the large part. There's a couple in here, I believe, that don't actually take place in jungles, but most of them do. And these were actually influential enough that the character of Mowgli the man cub was one of the major inspirations for Tarzan. Edgar Rice Burroughs was quite open about that. And apparently Kipling, who was alive for a number of the Tarzan stories published, apparently he kind of sniped at it, saying, oh, that's Tarzan, he's not as good as my Mowgli character. It's like, because Kipling was much more literary, traditional literary, and he did not supposedly look on Tarzan as matching the literary quality that he himself did. But regardless of that, this was the major inspiration for Tarzan, and I'm familiar with a lot of the adaptations of the Jungle Books. Like most kids, I saw the Disney version of the Jungle Book from the 1960s. I saw a couple other adaptations. I've seen some cartoons with Ricky Tikki Tavi, the mongoose, but I actually haven't read a lot of the original stories that were in the Jungle Book, so this will be a good excuse to read them this time. So the second prompt is Edgar Rice Burroughs' Jungle Stories. I wasn't planning to do this one, but just fortuitous timing, I was reading this month the very first Tarzan of the Apes, and I actually have only about 3 or 4 chapters left to finish in this, so I'll be doing this one for Jungle July. I've really enjoyed what I've read so far. Unless the ending is really bad, then I think I'm probably going to give this a very good review. The Tarzan story I was expecting to read for this reading event is The Return of Tarzan. This was the second Tarzan story, and I've been trying to read the Tarzan stories in chronological order, and as well as Edgar Rice Burroughs' bibliography roughly in order, because I kind of wanted to see how he developed as a writer. Also, these are the Ballantine editions with Neil Adams covers. They are very cool. So I can't wait to finish these two. Now, this other Edgar Rice Burroughs book is not a Tarzan book, but it is a jungle book in a sense. That is The Cave Girl. I have stopped and started this story multiple times, and I'm going to use this opportunity to finish it. And I've been intrigued about this story ever since I saw a panel at last year's Pulp Fest that was talking about the protagonist in The Cave Girl, a guy named, what's his name? Waldo Smith Jones. And the panel was talking about the heroes of Edgar Rice Burroughs, and they talked about how Waldo was a very unconventional Burroughs protagonist, because he kind of starts out as this wimp and this dandy who ends up stranded on this South Pacific island. And he has to not only man up to learn how to survive, but he has to learn how to be a man so that he can win the hand of the titular cave girl. So that's going to be very interesting to read, and I'm very excited to check that out. So, prompt 3 was the Tarzan knockoffs. Tarzan had a lot of knockoffs because there was a article in one of the recent Pulpsters that are handed out at Pulp Fest, and it pointed out that a lot of pulp knockoffs of Tarzan were because of how popular Tarzan was. A lot of us kind of think of Superman knockoffs happening in the 1930s after Superman became big, but there were a lot of Tarzan knockoffs too. And the one I chose for this one is, I don't know much about it. It's called The Gold of AKADA, and it apparently deals with this expedition that goes into the jungle looking for a lost civilization, and the group comes across a man named Anjani, and he's a Tarzan-esque character hanging out in here. That's all I really know about this. I was more interested in this because of the author. You can see here, John Russell Fearne. I've heard of Fearne because he did the Golden Amazon series, which was a very unique pulp character. I have not read any of her stories yet, but the descriptions I've read of her are very interesting. So I kind of chose Gold of AKADA just based on the recognition of the author. So I'll see what it's like. The second Tarzan knockoff is one who I'm actually fairly familiar with. That is KI-GOR. This is the second volume of his stories, put out by Steger Press. And KI-GOR was actually one of the more successful Tarzan knockoffs, because he was in the pulp magazine Jungle Stories, which went on for over 15 years. It went from, I believe, 1938 to 1954-55. It was it lasted longer than a lot of the other ones. And like I said, because it lasted so long, KI-GOR was actually one of the more successful Tarzan knockoffs, because a lot of Tarzan knockoffs would not even last a year in whatever pulp magazine they were put in, or they would be so sporadically used that it was they essentially died off, rather, if not quickly. They were so sparsely used that they just didn't last and have much of an influence. But KI-GOR actually hung around a fair amount. So I read the first one. I'm still writing my review for that. That'll be out sometime this month. But I wanted to read this one because I've actually enjoyed the KI-GOR stories I've read. They can be very hit or miss, because it says the author's John Peter Drummond, but that was a pen name. Multiple different writers wrote KI-GOR stories, so it's kind of a coin flip about whether you're going to get a good, bad, or great KI-GOR story. So this will be very interesting to read. So prompt 4, The Great White Hunter. For this one, I chose one character I was not that familiar with, and a second I had a little more familiarity with. The first is this character called KINGI BWANA. BWANA, of course, being the frequent term used in African stories to say boss. And BWANA, I believe it's Swahili, correct me if I'm wrong, but KINGI BWANA is a great white hunter who goes through Central Africa with his companions. Again, I don't know much about this character, but I had his book lying around, so I figured it was a good time to check him out. The second character is one I have a little familiarity with. That's Armless O'Neill. And Armless O'Neill, it's hard to see, but he has this hook for a hand. He's called Armless because he's missing one of his hands. And he was actually in the same pulp magazine as KI-GOR, Jungle Stories, as well as in Action Stories, which was another publication put out by Fiction House. They did both Jungle Stories and Action Stories. And and Fiction House had a lot of jungle-related media they put out. Not just pulp-related, but comics-related. Fiction House was a rare double hitter when it came to pulps and comics. They actually did both and became pretty renowned for both. So, yeah, I had a little knowledge of Armless O'Neill, and I'm going to be curious to see how he's written. So I decided to do 2 bonus stories that didn't really fit into any of these 4 prompts, but I wanted to do them because they have been sitting around a while and I wanted to read them. So the first one is one I picked up at Pulp Fest last year. It was mostly because the cover really caught my eye. It is Jungle Jungle,
It's by an author named Charles Nuetzel. He apparently had some other series that are listed here, but I've never heard of any of them. And this one I got mostly because the cover was very interesting to me because it's kind of hard to see, but it has this one great white hunter with this female, this blonde great white huntress, and it's under this tag, but there's a dark-haired jungle girl that he's holding up at gunpoint. So that was a pretty striking cover. I'm like, I wonder what that's all about. So I got this. And this Jungle is actually two different stories. The first one is Jungle Safari, about this expedition to the jungle to find a lost civilization, which is a pretty typical jungle story plot line. And the second one was titled Jungle Goddess, which is about a writer who goes into the jungle with his party and gets saved by this blonde jungle girl who's hanging out there. And that's all I know about it. So I'm going fairly blind into this one. It'll be interesting to see what it has. And since I just mentioned a jungle girl, I might as well have a publication devoted entirely to jungle girls. This is Men's Adventure Quarterly, the Jungle Girls issue. This was their 4th issue. I did the Wild West issue they did last month for June on the Range. And I wanted to do this one just because I was thinking about it and going, oh, wait, didn't Men's Adventure Quarterly do a jungle-related issue? And they did, on Jungle Girls. So I really wanted to check this out, so this event gives me a strong reason to do so. So we will be checking that out. So if you've seen my video on Rocket Summer, you'll know that I did a thing where I listed out the different books I was going to read, but also the different comics I was going to read, because there were a lot of that event was focused on classic sci-fi from the 1930s to about the 1960s, and there were a lot of sci-fi comics that came out because that was the golden age of comic books, and there were much more genres than we usually think of today. Like today we generally think of superhero comics being comics' main focus, but in the golden age of comics there were a wide variety of genres you could find on the stands, and science fiction comics were one of them, but also jungle comics. So I really wanted to show some jungle comics that I'm going to read this month so that I can show you guys the different variety of jungle comics, both from the past, because these are going to be past comics, but also some more modern jungle comics. So that's what this section is going to be devoted to, and I think you all will find them very interesting. I have to reach down because there's so many of them. All right, there we go. So the first jungle comics I wanted to do is called Jungle Comics. Again, this was a fiction house, the same one that put out Jungle Stories and Action Stories. But this was essentially the comic book version of Jungle Stories that they turned into comics. And Fiction House did this with another publication called Planet Stories. Planet Stories was a sci-fi pulp magazine, but for comics, they turned it into Planet Comics. So this one is actually pretty interesting because on the front cover here, you can see this jungle man here
this is not KI-GOR, this is KINGI. And KINGI is basically considered KI-GOR's comic book self, because there wasn't much difference between him and KI-GOR. Apparently, some people have said that they actually reuse storylines from KI-GOR's adventures. I haven't read this, so I don't know if that's true, but wouldn't surprise me. And yeah, so I'm going to read at least this first one of, Jungle Comics. I think there's only 4 or 5 issues in this one, so I may have to read the rest online or in my Gondwanaland Super Collection. But yeah, we're going to check these out because these were some of the most popular and well-known jungle comics of their day. So that'll be quite fun. Now the second Jungle Comics one is one that I have a number of, and it also happens to be called Jungle Comics. But this one is put out by Antarctic Press. Let's see. Yeah, there's their symbol. Antarctic Press has done a fair number of other comics, and this was apparently supposed to be a reboot of the old Jungle Comics, but it was going to use new writers and stories. And over the last few years, I've collected these 25 separate issues. They've done more by now, but these are the 25 I have. And I've always been real curious to finally get into them, but something always got in the way. So this month will be my excuse to read all 25 of these issues. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I believe Antarctic Press was the one who does Tomorrow Girl. I think they were the ones that did Tomorrow Girl. It's been a while since I've checked them out, so my memory's a bit hazy on them, but we will be reading their iteration of Jungle Comics this month. So but I mentioned earlier the Jungle Girls, who largely dominated comics. There were a couple of literary versions, but Jungle Girls, who were the female parallels to Tarzan, were quite often found in comics. And I figured that we would talk about the most famous Jungle Girl, Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. This is my Gondwanaland collection of the volume. And this one collects her first 25 stories from Jumbo Comics. She didn't start off with her own magazine. She appeared in Jumbo Comics, which was also, I believe, a Fiction House. Was this a Fiction House one, or was this someone else? Well, I'll figure that out later. But this was a very important character in terms of female comic book characters, because apparently Sheena actually appeared before Wonder Woman. So Sheena was actually very important in terms of female heroines in comic books. So it's going to be very cool to read about her opening few adventures. Now, Sheena was hugely popular. She had a fair amount of she had a couple of TV shows. I know she had at least one movie, but she was not the only Jungle Girl. And I decided I was going to look at Sheena's most well-known rival in the Jungle Girl genre of comics, who was Rula, Jungle Goddess. And Rula was from Fox Feature Syndicate. I know that. And Fox Feature Syndicate was a rival to a lot of other comic book companies. And I don't know much about Rula, except that she was essentially a stunt pilot who ended up in Africa and through whatever reasons crash landed there and decided to stay and protect the jungle. That's all I really know. But I'm real curious about her because Lance Jones of Guandanaland Comics, who provided this collection, has really vouched for her. So I'm real curious to see how she fares compared to Sheena and other Jungle Girls. And now I'm going to talk about some more modern Jungle comics. Yeah, aside from that one reboot of Jungle Comics, there's actually been a fair number of more recent Jungle comics done over the years. This first one is one from a couple of years ago from Moonstone Books titled Savage Beauty by this fellow Mike Bullock. And this was apparently supposed to be a modern attempt at a Jungle Girl comic. I think it was about 10 years ago. Let me see where's the copyright date on this. Well, the copyright date isn't here, but it was about 10 years ago this was published, and this was supposed to be a modern attempt at a Jungle Girl comic, and it features two Jungle Girls. That was kind of its gimmick, from what I understand. Excuse me, so this will be kind of interesting to check out. The next bunch of comics are a pair of three. They're called, they're from a, I don't know what the company is called, but they are called White Heat Comics. And I have three editions here, and they all have the Jungle Girl fighting various beasts. And these three have a character called Kyla the Jungle Girl. And I don't know much about them, except for that the Jungle Girl in question does Jungle Girl things. So this will be a bit of a exploration on my part, so this will be very cool to check out. The next one is one I got from a few years ago on a Kickstarter campaign. And it's actually a dual book. It's essentially a flip comic. The one that we'll focus on is Jungle Lords, and deals with this man and wife who end up in some sort of jungle, and they gain certain powers while they're there. They apparently crash land there on a plane. And this is the second one is this superhero comic parody called Ultra. We'll talk about I'll be more focused on Jungle Lords, but I'll talk about Ultra probably in the same video for easy, just to make it easy for myself. This one's an interesting one. I finished reading it a little while ago, so I've been trying to do a review on it for a while, but we'll get this out this month for Jungle July. And the final one is one that I just bought on a whim. I don't know what it's fully about, but it is titled Jungle Drama. And the most that I can glean from it based on what it is that there's two jungle girls who live in the same area, and they have this like weird rivalry with each other. I don't know if it's like a fighting rivalry or it's like they're fighting over a love interest. I don't know. It's what I've gleaned from it, and yeah, so we'll be checking this out, see what it's all about. So, as I've said for some previous events, I tend to bite off more than I can chew when I do these reading events. So there's a good chance I won't get through a lot of these. But there are a couple of them I really want to get through before the last week of July, because that's when I'm going to Pulp Fest. And there's going to be a couple of Edgar Rice Burroughs panels going on there, so I really want to finish the Edgar Rice Burroughs stories. And any of the pulp-related stories here I really want to finish too, so that'll be my main goal. So, yeah, that's it. Let me know if any of you want to participate and have any ideas of jungle stories you want me to read, or ones you want to read yourself. So, thank you very much for listening. Like I said, this was a hard video to do just because of the memory issues of my computer, but it is finally done. So, thank you very much to everyone who listened, and I will see you in the jungle. All right, bye.